Basketball Podcast.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Talk of Basketball Podcast. I am Mark.
And Paul, hello.
Paul, we have got a very, very interesting show today. Would you agree?
We have, but it's always evolving in British basketball. But Mark, look, before we say that, I just want to say a huge shout out to our listeners. We are officially over 750,000. How's that make you feel?
My God.
That's ridiculous.
How's that make you feel? You started a podcast and then
Brilliant.
all of a sudden you're now looking at 1 mil in the face.
Well, thanks to you, thanks to me, and thanks to everyone who's listened to this, I want to say goodbye eardrums.
Unless you're a badminton player, then that clap was not for you.
Yeah.
No, God! No, God, please, no! No!
Absolutely
No!
not. Get out.
No!
Also, Mark, I this is from a few of our listeners. You owe an apology to,
Okay.
because I remember when we recorded this episode, and I thought, as you said, I thought, did Mark just put a few swear words in there?
I would like...
And Mark, there was a young listener listening to it, and they were like, "What did he say?" And I went, and they covered, so you got away with it. But Mark, you owe the world an apology.
Well, I would give an apology, but all I would say is this: do as I say, not as I do. I'm old enough and ugly enough to do that, but don't swear, children, and don't swear to your parents, because
I set you up there.
They have
to
the
swear
power.
as a joke.
Well, I'm not going to do it. I'm not falling for it.
Don't worry, Mark. These people listening, I have got some stickers, some Talking Basketball Podcast stickers on the way
Lovely.
to you. So yeah,
Well,
cool.
It's it happens. What can I say? I'm a colourful person with a colourful vocabulary.
To be fair, it doesn't happen often. We're pretty PG, aren't we?
Yeah, I don't think there's no reason to, but occasionally it might pop out.
Bit of passion.
Bit of passion, a bit of
Yeah.
frustration, a bit of everything. Which leads us nicely into this week's topic.
Passion and frustration. UK basketball.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's an evolving picture. Mark, why don't you give us give everyone the lowdown. Shoot.
So
Wait for the gap. Shoot.
wait for
Mark,
the...
tell us. When there's a gap, start talking.
Okay.
Oh,
What?
shoot.
Anytime? No, the thing is,
Yeah, go on.
UK basketball has gone through a lot. That's the reality, isn't it? From, on the Paul Blake's episode, he talked about when the league went in with ITV Digital and they managed to get quite out of it, but still it put them very far back in terms of where they should have been if the digital part had taken off. So the league has had momentum, then struggled early from 2000s, and then it sort of was there. It was always there, but never really promoted outside of the geographies. 777 came in, bought into that. It seemed to be doing well. We kind of liked what the media was doing and what everyone was saying, but the reality was obviously that behind closed doors, a lot of bad things going on. And then the Super League was created from all the teams. Albeit it missed out on Plymouth, unfortunately.
That was a shame as well, because they've got a great setup.
Great setup and great fan base.
And I loved their home court. It was one of my favorites for aesthetics. Like, it just looked really great. The
pavilion.
Like an aircraft hangar. That I think looks really good. And their support is highlighted in the National League Div 3 with the Plymouth Raiders, who are getting about 700 people for an NBL Div 3 game.
There we go.
They got dancers, like 30 dancers by the looks of it, what I saw on the camera. And they got a show. They got a show going, and I think it's all part of that fan base in Plymouth. So we should get someone from Plymouth on. I think.
Funnily enough, we will be towards the end of the season. So one of the things that they've done in the West Country, incidentally, is actually have their own sort of mini league in a way that's specific to the Southwest. And part of the reason for that is because of the travel and everything. It's very difficult for some of the northern teams to come down into that sort of stretch, whereas the other teams, it's a bit easier, shall we say. So they've made this own league. So we'll be getting someone in to talk about the league. But almost
that
everyone,
big ice wall in the north is hard to get over, isn't it?
Well, do you know what? A lot of people have said basically, we want to come on the show, but we're having a bit of a season at the moment. So bear with us. And it's really, really fascinating that some people are having a bad season and need to correct it. Some people are having a great season and don't want to rock the boat. But anyway, let's get back to the SLB. So we've got the Super
League. I went
League.
north of the wall once, and I saw some White Walkers I met in Egypt, and she made love to me under a tree.
Look, everyone who doesn't know, I have not seen Game of Thrones. So all these references he comes out with every day, I have no clue what he's talking about.
I'm a bastard. I'm a bastard of Winterfell. Until I met in Egypt.
So you tell me off for saying those language, and then you say that. It's disgraceful.
I apologise for that.
Wow.
Listeners.
No, we're not having a snowflake warning. They can just suck it up. It is in the dictionary, so it's a real word. Anyway, so the Super League, they basically took on the license, took on the reins. Now, this is where it gets cloudy. This is the reality.
Can we say they did a really good job? They've been doing a good job, and the basketball is right. You know,
it goes back to what you said.
A couple of games, live games and stuff, and it's good.
But it goes back to what you said originally. Without the key teams in the league, there's no UK top flight basketball.
Yeah.
You need to have those top 5 teams just straight off the bat, because all 5 of those have a stadium. There's your 5 basketball arenas in the UK. And you've got Caledonia, Newcastle, Leicester, Sheffield, and Manchester. Because of obviously Manchester's the National Basketball Centre, for those who don't know. So those are the top 5 teams.
I've got history with some of the other clubs as well.
Of course, there's history, but there's always been a London team. You know, we've got London Lions at the moment. There's been the Towers. There's been Kingston. That loads and loads of different. There's always a London team. There's always been around that sort of thing.
The BBF have said one thing. I'll come back to it later, but they have said one thing around that topic, which I actually heard and went, "Oh, I like that language." But I'll come back to it. Go on, carry on.
So what they did was apparently took over, and they had a deal, and the deal was almost like a temporary license that the BBF granted them, and it was all agreed that it was a temporary license.
Can I ask a silly question?
Yeah.
Why have does the BBF have to have a license, and why do they have to be the ones that have to give out? Why do you need you don't need a license to play basketball, do you?
Okay, so apparently according to FIBA regulations, so this goes back to FIBA, for a league to be recognised as a professional league in FIBA, that's where all the stats come, if you're a professional player, you want to play in a professional league, right? The league has to be granted by FIBA. If it's outside if it's in the US, it's the NBA basically. You've got the NBA and the G League. There is obviously separate leagues outside of that, but it's the NBA and G League. They're their own governing bodies, effectively. FIBA recognises players all around the world. So if you're playing in the Philippines, what is the number 1 league in the Philippines? If you're playing in Dubai, if you're playing in China, if you're playing in Australia, what are the leagues? And those leagues are recognised in FIBA. So FIBA gives each country has to have a governing body for a sport. That's just, every country has that. You go to Denmark, they got a minister for sport. They will put people in charge of a certain sport. Now, right or wrong, for the UK, we have what is called the BBF. Now that is the British Basketball Federation. Now that was always around, but it got dusted off. It got dusted off when this whole thing with what was the BBL came into challenges, shall we say. We won't go into that because there's obviously legal ramifications with who owns the leagues and the names and stuff. But the reality is that BBL and that league stopped. And then the SLB is a brand new league. So the BBL got their license pulled. They're not operating anymore. That's the end of that. The SLB is a brand new league, and all the teams like moved over and took off. And it was sanctioned by FIBA. That's great. You know, we've seen teams like Newcastle. We've seen teams like Bristol and Caledonia. They were, you know, vying in Europe last year. So we've got good caliber players that are playing in these leagues. And
if they just say we don't care about the license and they carry on, the only impact is they're not recognized by FIBA, and that can't play in Europe.
Yep.
That's the only hit, right?
Yeah, but
but they're still professional players because they're getting paid to play basketball.
Yes. However, so this is where it gets interesting. So let's do one of the magic of TV, and let's go to our split screen, and I will actually share this with you because last time I did it, it made it a lot easier if I just share this. So this is what I'm looking at. This is what the world is looking at. Yeah.
Can I just say also about the BBF? There was a really interesting podcast that Sam Nita did at Hoop Fix with one of the guys, which was quite telling. I mean, that was about 2 months ago. So if you got a spare moment, go check that out.
Yeah. The guy that he did it with is Chris Grant, who is the head of the BBF.
Yeah.
And he gave absolutely no information and
politicians' answers, wasn't it?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people who are not particularly impressed with said person because the basketball background is not there, and the connection with the culture, the connection with, and when I say the culture, I'm not talking about a specific an urban culture or a NBA culture or that sort of thing. I'm talking about grassroots basketball, and they're up. There was no connection with that, so that's where a lot of the problems come. Anyway. What I'm sharing here is all about their response that the Super League gave. Now, the reason they had to give a response is because the BBF on April the 2nd, which was quite amusing. I thought they should have done it on the 1st, but
yeah, I think I know what you're going to say here.
Yeah.
Is this where they said they invest 15 million in 2 years?
15 million in 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the main points of that. But there was 3 sort of main areas. One was that it's going to be 15 million over the first 2 years. And, you know, you can see immediately where the BBF are looking at that thinking, lovely, we've got a nice payday here. That's fantastic. So no wonder Chris Grant and the BBF team, and it's all led by him, wanted to take an offer like that, as opposed to an offer that would have been from the incumbent people, the SLB. Now, we're getting ahead of ourselves anyway. The point was the SLB were in the running of it, and they had 1 year that they'd already done this league. So let's go back here. During that first year, the BBF decided, you know what, let's put it out to tender, because by the end of 2026, we need to have the full license in place. That was
you got to pay to go to the tender. I mean, that's a bit snowflake warning, but that's a bit of a dick thing to do, isn't it?
It is.
Is it?
Well, it is and isn't. So I will call out some of the negativity now, if I'm fair, on the people, and it's unfair to the BBF in particular. Every single commercial company, including all of the basketball clubs, will put things out to tender. That is a normal legal process.
Yeah, but you don't pay to do that, right? Like
I mean,
seen some of the stuff that I've worked in is retail. We don't pay to be at that table and say, here's what we're going to offer.
I have seen tenders that require a payment. I have seen them.
That's like that little admin fee when you buy stuff on a card, when you're buying Ticketmaster and all that crap.
Yeah,
that's what that is. It's an admin fee.
It is. So
what was the BBF admin fee?
15,000, I believe. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. So
can I just say one thing, Mark?
Yeah.
In fairness to the BBF, I have heard people say the same thing about the BBL.
Yep. It was exactly
to get to the table to talk to them about bringing another team in. They've gone, yeah, like 20 grand to come and talk to us.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I can't.
And other things.
With fact, but it's just some people from clubs have said, oh yeah, we did that, and that's why we didn't do it, because we weren't going to pay. He said 100 grand to go to the table.
You are 100% right that you've highlighted something there that everyone else would wipe under the table. Bernie Eccleston. Okay, I'm going to tell you a quick story about Bernie Eccleston. I landed it in Silverstone I was doing something with a company, and they got me to land in a helicopter in the middle of Silverstone, which was awesome, right? And then we were going to go to the paddock. Yeah, it was cool. The vans that picked us up from the helipad and drove us over were Ford Transits. You could tell they were Ford Transits, but the badges were all blacked out and taped over. And I said to the guys, like, what's the deal with that? I know I've told you, but I'll spare it with everyone. And they said, basically, Bernie went to Ford and said, you've got to pay me. And then, because I'm advertising your vans here. And they went, you can jog on. So he actually blacked them out. Everyone knows it's a Transit. We know what it is. But the fact he would not show their labels tells you everything you need to know about all sports. You know, look, I've got a Mavs top on. They bought into the league. They've done all sorts of crazy things with prices and so forth. But if you want to have an NBA team, if Seattle want to come back again, the amount of money just to buy in is frightening. So if you want a new Formula One team, the numbers are tremendous. Now this is
what, 1 mil?
Yeah,
2 mil?
times 100 plus. You need like 200 to 500 million to go get a Formula One team and bring it to the table. If you want to start a franchise, what was the one recently that they got kicked out of the Celtics was something like 6.5 billion. They just bought the Celtics for as a majority. 6.5 billion. Wow. Now that's the Celtics, but you're still looking at the like big numbers.
Do you know what I'd like to do if I had an F1 team? I'd put like the Batmobile or the DeLorean in the lineup.
Yeah.
That'd be cool, wouldn't it?
Well, you could do.
Imagine all the cars lining up and then the Batmobile at the back.
I mean,
they might get annoyed when the fire comes out.
You could pay, if you did that, you would be doing the whole Michael Jordan thing where you accept you're going to get fined massively, but it's okay because it's a great marketing stunt. But anyway, let's go to the SLB. So what they did was they said, hang on a minute. Well, why should we pay? We're the ones running this league. There wouldn't be a league without us. And the BBF did nothing to help them other than cancel the old league and say, oh, do you want to run the new league? That's what they did. That's all they did. Everything else was on the teams. So the Leicesters, Newcastles, Bristols, they all got together to work on how to do it. And it turned out that Sheffield in the end and Vormille, he became chairman. Now, I know you had feelings on that with a club owner being the chairman of the league.
Yeah, it was more like, it was just for fairness. But look, I'll go back to what I said earlier. I think the season for the SLB, we've had some absolutely great moments. I mean, just to highlight one of them, what they did with the SLB trophy. Remember when they brought the teams from NBL Div 1 for Scotland and did they have a Welsh team as well? Can't remember.
Wasn't it Cardiff Met Archers, wasn't it?
I can't remember. But you know what I mean? It was great. And we've been talking about that for ages, about having it as an FA Cup thing and it builds up. I thought they knocked that one out the park. Like if they could do that even bigger and go and start maybe 2 rounds before and get all the NBL clubs in, that would be even better. But little things like that they did, I thought were brilliant. I think they've done a great job.
Agreed. So,
and they spent 15 million of their own money this season. You know what? I feel sorry for Moulton. We had him on. If you're not the Moulton guy on, and he was like, you know, we were just like when the BBL quit and we were trying to work it all out. His brain was like, it takes like a year to make these balls. He must be going, what am I doing?
Yeah, Paul must be not be happy with those sort of things. But look, they did this, and then they said we're going to put a tender process out. Now, the tender process this is where it gets really interesting. It's to start running the league as of 2026. So you go, well, hang on a minute. So
what's happening next season?
Well, so this is where it gets better. Not only did they announce yesterday, hey, we are doing this. We're going to give it to the new people, and we'll come on to them, and we're going to give it to the new people. And they have done this. They've promised this amount of money. They've promised they're going to do these sort of things. You know, we've heard that before in British basketball, which is a big concern for everyone. But also, we're now acting part of the temporary policy which we had, which was in the contract, that we're going to end at the end of this season. So the SuperLeague basketball no longer will have the FIBA license, so to speak, as of the end of this season.
So the BBF think it's a good idea to stop all basketball in the UK for a year.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
And then, so this is where I come onto this shared screen bit, which is where it says here, the teams have got together, and it's exactly what you've said there. The SLB want to make it clear that we do not legally require a license to continue to operate professional basketball. And they're correct. They don't, as you said. If you want to operate basketball, just like you or I or anyone else, we can have teams.
Fair play to them.
They have
Fair play to them.
They're the ones who have built up the communities. They're the ones who have the arenas. They are the ones who have the things that the new owners would want.
They're the ones spending all the money at the moment.
Well, yes, and it's their money that they're spending, and that's the key thing. It's their money that they've put into it. So invested over 15 million in the season. I mean, you can say we're adding up all of the academies and we're adding up everything, and so to speak, should we say? So that's an interesting because that's the same number. That's the number that the BBF said that they are spending on the season to create it, to make it sustainable. I'd imagine that is all 9 clubs and all of the outgoings and everything that they combine in together to give an idea of this is how much we commit to making this work. I just thought the number 15 was interesting because it's exactly the same number that
they're throwing that back in their face, saying you're going to do that in 2 years. We've just done that this year.
In 1 year, exactly.
Just what I like. But the language that I really like in what you brought out is make it like, hey, look, the SLB would like to make it clear that it does not legally require a BBF license to continue operation in the league. Yeah. And then the other one is that really stands out. All 9 clubs are, and look, this wording has been well thought out and discussed. All 9 partner clubs are united in the vision, in the other words, stable and viable league. And beyond. If you look at the language, they're basically saying we're doing the season next year and we're planning on carrying going.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%.
If I was the, what's the new guys called?
So,
because they've got a name, the GBBL.
Yeah.
Is that those guys? If I was those guys, I'm trying to be devil's advocate here.
Well, here we go.
I would be courting these 9 teams, getting them all together and going, let's make it work.
So, this is the GBBL. Now, I'm going to say straight off the bat, I actually kind of like GBBL.
They were trying to get away from the Brazilian butt lift thing. That was the whole point. Yeah. Now it's just the great Brazilian butt lift. Isn't it? Like the SLB, I quite liked it because it was like, okay, you know what? It's different.
It could have been worse. That's where I'm going from. It could have been a lot worse.
It's better than just BBL, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the statement. I've got it up shared for everyone to see. So this is the actual document that everyone will be looking at. What is the really interesting part here that you'll be able to see is it's talking about they will operate as of 2026, 2027. So as we say, so what it means is what happens in this section. Options are under.
Is this going to be like the WWF where it's like Monday Night Raw and Thursday Night SmackDown? It's going to be like that, isn't it?
So this is the one of the big ones for me right here.
Yes, that was that and that's what I was referring to earlier.
This is huge. Yeah, when they're saying we're looking to engage with the current owners, which they absolutely should, while looking at places in Liverpool, Leeds, Cardiff, Edinburgh, and Birmingham, but
they have to get those clubs,
but that's
current clubs on board.
But isn't that
if
interesting?
They don't get those current clubs on board, you can get these National League Div 1 teams.
Yep.
And I mean, you're going to have to pump. Someone's going to be paying for it.
Oh,
you're going to need owners
100%.
to come in and do this. I just can't see it happening without these 9 clubs. And if they stay united, well.
So there's this. That is one of the things. I mean, you got load of bluff, you got load of blah 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 blah.
Sorry, Mark. Just let's say these names because for a lot of our listeners are Okay. I don't watch it on YouTube.
So Marshall Glickman, for example, is the acting. He was the former CEO of the EuroLeague. Yeah, and he is the main person who is, presenting this proposal. Along with that, you've got Chris Delaveau, who was the COO for the Greg Norman companies. Greg Norman, famous for golf, etc., and Aryon Mehta, who was actually an investment director for the sports companies. And they're all. I think they've worked together over.
Sounds good, doesn't it? It sounds good.
Now you say that. So apparently, a lot of people, as always, they get on board and they all get excitable, and they put a lot of Glickman wasn't liked in EuroLeague, and he was only a temporary acting CEO for the EuroLeague, and some of the clubs didn't like him, but no one digs into why, and it's because of he was interested in expanding it, monetizing it, doing those sort of things. They didn't want to shake that tree. He's now got his opportunity to do what he wanted to do with the EuroLeague, and he could do it here. Now, bear in mind, he used to be the former president of the Portland Trail Blazers. So he has a thing or two. He knows a little bit about basketball and running and operations.
He's connected.
Right. Let's look on the flip side at who runs the BBF and the SLB. None of them have had that CV. None of them.
No.
None of them. And like you said, connected. They just have not been. It's very much like someone saying, I can drive a car fast. Great. Now I'm going to become a racing driver. Great. Now I'm a racing driver. Now I'm going to get an F1 car. It's like, no, it's a different. You're talking about different money, different speeds, everything is just a step up.
I reckon I could drive an F1 car. Just saying. Facts.
Dude, I almost got stuck getting sat in one. It wasn't fun. Like they are not for anyone who is fat, basically.
Yeah, mate. I remember sitting in it was an F2 car, and it was tight. It was tight.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to say the teams that they're looking at investigating there, like as far as bringing teams into these cities.
Yep.
It says Liverpool, Leeds,
yep,
Cardiff, Edinburgh, Birmingham. I know the Edinburgh has been talked about for a while. Well, Birmingham's been talked about for a while.
Originally, Glasgow Rocks came from Edinburgh, I believe.
Yeah. Well, there's some that aren't on that list. So, for example, I'd say Reading Rockets.
Yeah, I'm really disgusted by that list that there is no one in the south. Genuinely, I was really, really angry about that because...
Use the word disgusted.
I am disgusted. Firstly, why has Plymouth not even been talked about? It has such a... we've just talked about it.
Yeah.
We've literally just said they've got a massive base down there. If you don't want to put it in Plymouth, put it in Exeter then. Why is the Southwest... There's no one in the Southwest. The most southern team on that list...
Cardiff.
No.
Birmingham?
Surrey 89ers. Yeah. So in total, for professional basketball, where's the representation from a team like Worthing Bears?
Yeah.
There's no one in the south. It's ridiculous.
Like Reading, that's right. I think Reading would be a good one as well.
Yeah.
I would say Solent. If you want to talk about historical teams, you have the Solent Stars.
Yeah, exactly.
Worthing
Bears.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to say this now, and I might upset any listeners down the road from us, but
snowflakes.
This is all I'm stating is fact.
All right.
So Solent Stars are no more, and then you've got the Solent Kestrels where they're just about to go into NBL Div 1. You know they won NBL Div 1 4 seasons in a row. They took the trophy by storm and got to the final. You cannot deny that.
No.
But when you look at the all-time rankings of successful clubs in the UK, Newcastle Eagles being at the top of those, number 16th is Portsmouth FC Basketball Club.
Yeah, it is.
And that's because they won back-to-back Div 1 titles. Did they win a cup? They got to the final every year. But the Kestrels are the Solent Stars are 2 places below them in like 18th.
Yeah.
So you're talking about a Southern team. Yeah. Personally, I mean, I'm going to be biased, but I'm going to say Portsmouth. But yeah, I mean, you've given a good shout there with Worthing as well.
Like Worthing, look, we know that the Portsmouth team became the Worthing team, became the Solent team, blah, blah, blah. You know, a lot of people moved around.
There are other teams. Excuse me. There are other teams with great academies and setups, like in Milton Keynes Breakers. They got a great setup there.
100%.
You got to look at other teams like in Derby. I mean, they've been consistent. Nottingham, they've been consistently up there. Where else? You know, you can go to Kent. Go Kent way as well. And I think that's where the league's really got to expand, other than, you know, going north for the wall, for the White Walkers.
Yeah, and that's the bit that I really had a sort of issue with. I was like I say, disgusted, because it just, you just think,
that's a strong word.
Well, you go Liverpool, okay, great, but if I'm looking at Liverpool, you think
Thames Valley, Kingston,
exactly. But
Thames Valley Tigers, they had probably one of the best kits of all time.
And so you look at that, you go Reading Rockets, you get Thames Valley. You know, you've got teams that you meant Kent with like the Panthers and stuff, but if you
Barking Abbey,
if you look at Liverpool, you got Cheshire here and you got Manchester there. You don't necessarily need a Liverpool. If you're going to have Leeds, you've already got Sheffield, you've already got Leicester. Like, I guess if you went Nottingham, you're still on that same sort of tree. Edinburgh makes complete sense. Cardiff makes complete sense to me. Birmingham, I mean, they've talked about it long enough. And I didn't have the bullets.
You're right with Bristol. You know what? Do you know what? One of the greatest tragedies that happened with the SLB. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say, do you know what? One of the worst mistakes that they made?
Losing the Giants' name.
They lost Hat Riots, the mascot.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Patriots. He was quality.
Yeah, 100%.
He was great. He's literally one of the best mascots in the UK. He was funny as hell.
Yeah, disappointing that went.
Yeah, but look, hopefully we're going to see something from Plymouth. So yeah, but Mark, we've just rattled off a few, and if someone could put it all together, I mean, again, going back to the words Paul Blake said, he said it's got to be a sustainable model. Like, you're probably paying, let's say you're paying, like, say nothing, 25 grand per player. Okay, you just their salary is $250,000, but then you got the cars, where they're staying, all that stuff that goes through it, the transport. You know, it's a big operation. You're not, it's me or you aren't going to walk in and go, yeah, we'll do it.
No, I mean, I am generally, what I find is quite interesting is the websites for the SLB and GB basketball have been a bit spotty over the last few days, because a lot of people are looking at it. A lot of people are looking at it and they're going to read all these articles. So, like, I tried getting on GB's website earlier, crashed. There was nothing there.
Oh.
Yeah, and you have to. I've got the links still saved, so I went to the
Does
link.
the license affect the international setup? Like, do the GB still say the same? That's it. I wonder if that.
So the league, it's the license was relating to running the domestic league. Now, what is interesting about that is everyone has doom and gloomed and said it is very, very bad. And what they did to the SLB is no good. So I think it's our job, in fairness, to try and be, I'm not saying reverse bias, but try and just add a little bit more of a weighted argument. And has the BBF done this the right way? No.
I think we all agree on that. Every
single person will agree on that. And do you know what?
I think they should just sat down at the table without saying, give us 20 grand first, or whatever it was.
They should have said, you are the incumbent, so you are waived the fee because you are the incumbent. And it is a 15,000 fee, but we take that off of money that you're giving us. So actually you're owed nothing. Yeah.
Let's just have the chat on a night out. Done. Let's just go to a restaurant.
Well, the reason that I think a fee in place is a good idea, because then it means that they don't just have people just randomly throw, like you or me could write up a thing and go, right, we're going to call the new league the No Pants League and whatever. I don't know. And like,
is this the men's or the women's?
Oh God, no. Let's not go there. No.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
You went there. No, I get that.
But
I get that. But you can request to go to tender and be denied to have the chat.
Yeah, of course you can. And that's the thing. Like a lot of these big sports, as you brought up with like the buy-in for big sports, the reality is, if you said, hey, I want to do this, it's a bit like buying certain Ferraris. If a brand new Ferrari comes out, you have to show to Ferrari, hey, I've got a history with Ferrari and I've spent this much in Ferraris and I've had these models. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter if you got 10 million in the bank, they will literally not sell you that. But so it's a common thing in the business world. So what they did isn't incorrect. It's how they did it. And I think everyone can agree on that. But what if it does work out? And that's what I wanted to put to you today. What if it does work out? So what if they do put 15 million in over these next few years just for building things? What if these people who are super connected bring in big sponsors and big money, and instead of the BBF league as it was with the SLB, them saying you need to pay us every year, what if, like the NBA and the Euro League, the league gets all the money and pushes it back to the teams? So
I think that's what the new owners were saying.
Exactly. And that's the thing that people are going round. It's all very well for all these teams to be united and say we've been wronged. We've all been wronged. Life isn't fair. We get that. But I wonder how out of
Worcester.
I wonder how out of pocket those people would be.
Worcester Wildcats.
Okay, thanks for that. I wonder if...
Sorry, Worcester Wolfpack.
Worcester Shores. Or was it Worcestershire?
They had a big team.
But imagine those teams if now the new league owners are going, oh, here's 500 grand. What for? Well, we've got these sponsorships in, so this is your share. Suddenly, I think the teams might change their mind and go, oh, yeah, actually, this new league's not so...
If you're London, you'll be like, thanks, that's going to pay the salary of one player.
Yeah.
But in the last year, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But then if you look at Caledonia, they'll go, great, because the teams don't have to run the league. The league's going to be fairer. We saw it, what happened when the league was, I think they tried to do a good job with the SLB, but the reality was it wasn't balanced. The way that they did media wasn't balanced. The way they had to do things, because the teams that had the most input got the most share of it. And
well, I've actually really enjoyed the media from the SLB this year.
I've enjoyed the media, but I don't think it's been I think it's there's a bias. There's certainly a bias there. Because of the teams who are running it are actually associated with specific teams. So
I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more.
Yeah.
I did actually. There was one. Oh, I better not say it. There was one. I'm gonna have to tiptoe around this subject. There was one post that went out. Actually, no, it was on a team post. There was someone saying something that I just completely disagreed with, and it was just like, come on, what are you talking about? But that wasn't the SLB that posted that. That was a club. I really enjoyed.
I know what you're talking about.
I would like more.
That is one of those warnings, isn't it?
I'm not going to comment on it.
Why?
I'm not going to comment on it. It was basically talking about that men and women are equal when they're playing a sport. They're not. They're not. As simple as that.
Yeah.
Like, if there was a game I saw on at the weekend, men playing against women. Men are stronger, more physical, quicker. That's a fact. So when people make statements like, "Oh, we're the same," it's like, no, you're not. I'm not knocking anyone. I'm just saying it's two different standards. I'm not saying one's better or anything like that. I'm just saying it's two different standards, and you couldn't have a mixed league. That would be silly.
I will always defer to Serena Williams with that argument, because she went on openly and someone said, "You play the men's game."
Yeah, that's a good example.
And she just said, and Serena Williams arguably is one of the greatest. She's certainly the greatest female tennis player ever. And she's arguably one of the greatest tennis players, full stop. And she said, "Oh, if I went on the court of Andy Murray, he'd just wipe the floor with me." I don't think that's true. I think she'd stand her own because she was epic. But she's like, they physically will always serve faster than me.
Well, McEnroe thinks he was quite vocal when he was like,
yeah,
she would get wiped, and like, I mean, he knows his stuff.
Yeah, but the fact that she said it.
I'm not saying anything negative. You're right. It's a completely
different game, and
a different level.
I watched the WNBA game, and it's a different game. It's just the way it's played is just different, and it's.
Oh, can I say something? I thought this was really sweet. There was a game in Australia in the women's NBL, and during the game, one of the kids of a player ran on the court, just like going, "Mom!"
Oh, really?
And the kid must have been like 2 or 3.
Oh, nice.
And it ran on the court, and the mum kind of just like went up, grabbed hold of him, like, "Come on," and went to the bench and just chucked him down on the bench, like, "Stay." But that was a really sweet moment.
That's good. But you need those things in sport, don't you?
Hey, remember when we had that kid who ran on the court in the last season of the BBF? Remember that?
Yeah.
Was that Leicester? He ran on the court.
They had like pigeons, cats. They've had all sorts of weird things like turn up, on the court. But and those things make part of the game as well. Like when you see players on the court and they're all laughing with each other as well. You can have the competitiveness, but at the same time, there's something where everyone's like, we're all human. But yeah, so look, wrapping up this whole thing, I think the biggest problem, it sounds silly, at this moment is that it wasn't handled very well, but more...
There's emotions there, isn't there?
Yeah, and that is all on the BBF. They really handled that badly, and that's all on Chris Grant. He's the one who's responsible for it. Their communication was bad, and the way they did it really was not just hitting the teams, but it was punching every fan and every player.
Yeah.
And that is, and seeing as we had that as fans and players from when the whole 777 thing blew up, everyone had that before, and you're going a year later, you're doing it again and publicly doing it. If that person isn't resigned very soon, I'd be very shocked. Let's put it that way.
And look, in fairness to the SLB, those guys have made that work on their own.
Oh, 100%.
They've made it work on their own.
There's
and
no league without them.
Exactly. And for it to be treated a little bit like that, it's like, that's a bit harsh, man.
Now,
that's a bit harsh.
If it's unfair, and it's actually, it's rude, it's ignorant, but it's 100% a business thing, the way that they've operated that. And all I'd say is that those things, you're selling a service, and you're selling what you said earlier about entertainment. This is an entertainment package. Sport live is an entertainment package, ultimately. And that's what we all go to. We go to watch sport, to relax, to enjoy it, to have camaraderie, to sit next to people, to maybe give them a little bit of this. But that's why we go pay sport. And what they've done is just set fire to the fans and the clubs. And you go, so what will people be watching?
Is a repetitive theme, isn't it? Like,
yes.
And that's why lots of fans go, "Oh, I can't be bothered listening to this," and
exactly.
kind of disengage, because there's enough basketball in the NBL Div 1 to 3 to. Yeah. It's not that professional level, but you know what I mean. There's basketball around, and people do that. I will say, one or two things is going to happen here.
What's that?
It is pretty straightforward. You're going to have the SLB taking on the GBBL.
Yep.
You're going to have 2 leagues kicking off, and it's pretty much going to be WWE Monday Night Raw, Thursday Night SmackDown. Pick your side.
Yeah.
And everyone's going to be going, you've got to get the best 2 teams playing it out at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Or the GBBL guys have got to court these 9 teams and say, we need you in this league.
So
you know what? I always say the same thing. I just hope the best for British basketball. That's what I say.
Yeah, I do. And I think money talks. And the reality is it wouldn't. If someone said, right, we've bought the rights to the league, deal with it. We own the rights to the league now. What do the teams lose out of it? Nothing. If they still get to play, they still get to pay, they still earn money, and everything happens, they just play under this league. So there's things that they are bitter about, and it's probably the process or whatever, that none of us are privy to. And no reporters online, no websites, no one in media. This is literally a contractual thing that people who were part of the SLB know, and we don't. And unless you're in that room, none of us know. And everything's conjecture. So whatever you read online about this person did this, or they've said that, or promised this, I'm calling BS on a lot of that, because I think there's just a lot of emotion and people don't actually know. And until we know what happens at the end of this season, we can't see what's going to happen. But I think there could be a lockout. I'd like to throw that out there, because you think the NBA is famous for having a couple of lockouts. There's no reason why there wouldn't be a lockout from what would be the start of the season until
the players or the teams are saying,
while they're still negotiating it. Because what you said, there's no league without those core 4 or 5 teams, because they have the stadiums.
Or it won't be as good. It won't be nearly as good.
Well,
but you know what? Do you know what an interesting dynamic would be?
No one's paying to watch gymnasiums. No one's paying for that.
Is an interesting dynamic would be if there are 2 leagues.
Yeah.
The money's got to come in the league, because those 2. Imagine you got certain players that they're fighting for.
Yep.
Money's going to come into that then.
But where's the money?
Huge, isn't it?
Yeah, but where's the main money going to come from? And everyone knows in sport, what is the number one where money comes in? Where does money come from?
TV.
It's the biggest thing. If these guys have got, and I'm saying guys because it's just the 3 that we know of at the moment in that organization, they've got all these connections. If they've got some TV money behind, if they're committing for 15 million guaranteed for 2 years, when in the attender, remember, the commitment was only 1.5 million a year. That was what the original was agreed. So they said, yeah, we'd already commit to that. Like, we'll guarantee it for the first 2 years, let alone 10 years. We'll guarantee it for 2 years. So that's where there's been a bit of a skewed bit of information. But what if they've got 2? Now, that's why I was going to come to this question for you. You've made a joke, and in the podcast many moons ago, if someone can go pull it up when he first did it, that'd be great. Let me know. You said if you won 100 million in euros, you'd build a stadium, right?
Yeah.
Right. You could buy the league for that, yeah?
Yeah.
You could. Would you buy the league? If right now someone said you could buy the league, huh?
No.
And
too much drama, mate. Too much drama.
You wouldn't want to do that.
No, too much drama.
So that's what I mean.
I'll build an arena.
Yep.
And then, you know what? This is me being completely honest. And this might sound silly, but it's just because I've met him and he was extremely switched on and kind to me.
Yep.
If I won 100 million, I'd build. My plan would be to build an arena, but I'd give Paul Blake a call, Newcastle Eagle owner, and say, Paul, what should I do?
Oh yeah.
And have your advice.
Yeah.
That's what I would do, and I'd be like that. So that's what I would do. I'd be following his advice.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? You look at it and you say, oh, I got all the money. You go, even if you had all the money, who'd want to run the league? Like, that is just, if any of you out here listening run your local leagues, or even involved at the level of running the local leagues, doing the refs, talking the people, wet the people, doing all of that stuff, nightmare.
Oh, if I was the chairman, I could introduce myself, couldn't I? And your chairman and court announcer and
why would you want to introduce yourself?
Is Paul the Wizard.
Oh, that's what you want to be, is it?
Good,
Paul the Wizard.
Look, this is a fact, Mark.
Oh, no.
At least on a handful of occasions, I was known as the Wizard. Okay?
On a
fact.
On a handful of occasions.
On a handful of occasions, about 20 years ago, I was known as the Wizard.
No.
Anyway,
well,
right.
There
you go.
I've got one. I've got one for you just before you leave.
Oh, yeah.
So this was sent to me by someone, and I'm just going to read it out. It was sent to me, and it was actually a post on the socials. Okay. And someone had put about the recent game, and it was in, I think it was Newcastle. I can't remember who they were playing. But what happened was there was no referees because of the referee incidents that are still going on in the UK.
What? How did I miss this? What do you mean there's no refs?
There was no referees, so it gets better. So they got in 3 refs from Europe. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And this is I'm literally word for
We're
word.
not going to go to the NBL. We'll go to Europe. Okay.
This is what someone had put openly on. It's out there. I won't mention the person's name or who sent it to me, but they put, I thought the 3 refs were great credit tonight. They seemed to get the majority of calls spot on. And when you watch them and they took time with the coaches and players to explain their decisions and fully and calmly, which resulted in mutual respect and understanding throughout the game. This was a breath of fresh air. Yep. Wish we could have them every week or get them back to train ours, who often lose control of the games because they are very combative with their communication style. That is literally out there.
And that's exactly why they're not reffing at the moment.
That is literally out there on the web. But I thought that was really fascinating because it's exactly what you, when we went to the Niners game, you saw the way some of the refs were just calm, talking to someone. One would talk to them, one would just, and then that's it. And you go, you're a bad communicator, but you were good. And
I know in Caledonia, we were right by their bench, and when they were trying to communicate with the refs, it was like, whoa, stop. And then it was like, so I can appreciate what that person's saying there because we've seen it. And also we saw 3 feet out of bounds whilst they're holding the ball. I was like, literally, terrible. We can see that. Why aren't you calling it? It was but yeah, no, well, that's great to hear. I'm going
to put it on the socials. I'm going to share it. There was after seeing that, I had a link sent to me about a different ref, and I think it was on FIBA, but it's one of the European refs, and they mic'd him up during a game. And I'm telling everyone, just go listen to this. This guy is I mean, you literally think that's how a ref should be. And you think the ref is here, and the players are like up here somewhere. And they're coming over going, what? And he said, come on, man, you put your foot out. I saw that. Like, hey, no, you can't do that. You're putting on there. If you're going to put your hand on it, that's like the way he's saying it to them. He's being like, I'm telling you a fact, but I'm not being rude about it. And you just sit there and think, perfect, isn't it?
You know what? I can sum that up with one word: respect.
Yeah, 100%. If a
referee's good, he gets respect from the players, he gets respect from the coaches. They know they're not going to be able to give him BS or manipulate him, and it's like respect, bam, there you go.
Exactly.
And that's what you kind of need. But
he was respecting them as a player and saying, come on, you got to respect me. And then they started showing it, and then the coaches were like, the coaches are shouting, and he's like, come on, that's not going to get anywhere, is it? And it's just all those sort of things. You just thought, yeah, amazing. Amazing. So look, we've covered the SLB and everything that's going on. No one knows. None of us know.
Time knows.
Time will know. It's going to be interesting. But I think if I could leave anything on it, I'd say still watch the SLP games, still support the teams, still watch them through the playoffs. Because I don't think any of the teams are going anywhere.
London are doing really well. It's like
exactly, and like
they started really slow and they're just flying at the moment.
Yeah, the Sharks are doing great. And you look at them and you just think those teams and those players and all the fan bases deserve the positive attention and, you know, go to the games, go cheer for people, be positive about the game because the game isn't going anywhere. It's way too popular. But
we support UK basketball.
100%.
Simple as that. And you know what? What the real positive that the SLB and the GBBL and all of that have got moving forward is I actually read an article the other day, and we've highlighted this about the basketball in the UK is now the second most team played sport outside of football. Yep. I mean, when you think cricket, rugby, all of these sports, volleyball, hockey, you look at it and think, wow. Basketball beats all of those now. And, you know, when you look at some of the numbers online, it's really false because it says, only 255,000 people play basketball. It's like, no, you need to update those numbers. It's like 1.4 million or whatever it is now. But it's, it also highlights that the popularity of the sport is is significantly growing
And
in the last couple of years.
On what you've said there with the growth, do you know how many times because obviously I follow teams on our socials, go check out our socials if you haven't already, the amount of times I see brand new teams that are popping up in the UK all the time. It's brilliant. Like, hey, coming soon, we've got this team. We've got the women's team version of the men's team coming out this season or next season. Brilliant. So there's more and more people with grassroots sort of stuff. Yeah. Just they've got to get their orders for the kits in because they ain't going to be ready for September by now.
Morton are panicking. They're going, hang on, what are we doing?
Well, you've got to give the guys at All In get Mark and the guys at All In a shout. They'll sort you out, kit, won't they?
They'll sort them out.
They will sort us out.
Mark, I've got one last thing to say.
Oh, no.
And I've thought of a really nice way to say this. And I've been waiting a long time to say this. I've been saying this on a basketball court for about 30 years for a laugh.
We said no swearing.
No, it's not swearing. It's not swearing. I've been saying this on a basketball court for so long for a laugh. And people usually hear me say it and go, oh, that's funny. But, you know, in the NBA, you had Dylan Brooks.
Yeah.
He got a technical foul for a testicle foul. Oh, dear. Anytime someone gets hits in the nuts in a basketball game, I'm always like, testicle foul.
That is awful. awful.
Testicle foul on Dylan Brooks.
Nice. Dying of plague. Lovely.
Oh, dear.
Well, yeah. So that ends an exciting week. Who knows what's going to happen next week? But stay tuned in. Look on DAZN. Watch all the games. The coverage there has been great. And, yeah, hopefully positive things are going to come out of this. But let's wait and see. So into another edition of Talking Basketball Podcast. Thank you so much for listening and tuning in as always. Go check out our socials. Go check out YouTube if you're not watching this on there or on there. I've been Mark.
I have been Paul. And we are in the midst of confusion of UK basketball, but that is normal. That's normal. Don't worry about it. It'll work itself out. It'll be right.
Good old British spirit there.